a provincial Ukrainian artist who shook the entire artistic world. A small sketch that can compete with the most ambitious canvases. It was an unexpected twist of fate for an artist who dreamed of achieving exactly what he wanted in life. Sumy Regional Art Museum. It became majestic and picturesque, though it suffered through hard times. Founded on March the 1st in 1920, in a way it repeated the fate of its founder, the Ukrainian painter, art critic and public figure Nikanor Onatsky. Just like the first director was persecuted by the Soviet authorities and was forced to move from Sumy to Poltava, the museum also kept moving from building to building over many years. Established and highly cherished in extremely difficult conditions, it became a real treasury of domestic and foreign visual and decorative arts of the 16th to 21st centuries. Indeed, the fantastic exhibits of this museum can be used to study both the history of the whole country and the lives of individual artists, such as Archip Kuindzhi.
Archip
Kuindzhi was an innovator of his time in the second half of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century in the sphere of landscape painting. He was an artist who introduced new accents in the sphere of painting in those times. He worked as a professor at the Academy of Arts and was the founder of the Archip Ivanovich Kuindzhi Society. With his art, he inspired every one of his students to take his innovative ideas and develop them further so that they could have a successful career.
Archip
Ivanovich Kuindzhi was an extraordinary artist, innovator, philosopher, researcher, provoker, hermit and philanthropist. He was one of the prominent representatives of such a complex trend in the art of the late 19th century that is known as Luminism. It is a sphere of art that focuses on a fairly complex artistic task, namely the search for light effects in painting. Vrubel and Rerik called him their great teacher. Repin represented him a lot. Kramskoy admired him. Benoit called him the second main, though frankly, Kuindzhi's Impressionism method never became fundamental. Kuindzhi left such an important understanding of materials in art in the history of the world painting. As paint, its physical properties and qualities. On the other hand, it was him who showed how to refuse from an artist's dependence on the material that is paint. So when we look at Kuindzhi's canvases, the most important question that we ask ourselves is, how did he manage to do that? And how is it possible? This is Kuindzhi's sketch that is exhibited at the Sumy Regional Art Museum called Moonlit Night, which the artist created in 1880. Due to its vertical format, the effect of the famous work in the Sumy Art Museum is more focused on conveying the sense of space. If lighting effects in the Moon series are similar to those that could be achieved if you put the depicted landscape in an enclosed area or space so that the light reflects them from the imaginary walls and returns back to the source, to the center, then in the case of these works, exhibited at the Sumy Art Museum, everything is exactly the opposite.
то здесь в работе Сумского художественного музея все в точности наоборот. В этой картине лунный свет не такой яркий.
Indeed, in this painting, the moonlight is not as bright and is much more similar to natural atmospheric moonlight. This makes the work unique. There are much fewer artificial effects in this work than in many others from the Moon series. In general, the density of air, of the atmosphere itself, is much more prominent in the painting. The line of the horizon is much closer in this painting than in the rest of the artist's works from the series. The gaze is not focused on the distance, which is the focus of all works from the Moon series of Kuindzhi, on the vast expanses that is depicted, but here everything is shifted to the near perspective. What is interesting is that the close perspective is a very small but very bright moonlight reflection on the water. But there is one more unique feature in the work exhibited at the Sumy Museum. It is a microscopically small, bright point on the horizon that has a very special visual effect. It helps to visually combine two large sources of illumination in the painting into one: the moon itself and its reflection on the water surface. Thanks to this microscopic but a very important effect, they all line up into a single vertical line, focusing the viewer's eye on the line and add a sense of space to the painting. The audience was impressed by the elusiveness of the painting Moonlit Night on Dnipro. The effect of elusiveness, almost a sense of materialization, is also present in the painting at the Sumy Art Museum. This majestic, almost a cosmic depiction of the Ukrainian landscape still impresses and delights us. It is essentially a mythological vision of the surrounding world, where not a specific landscape is depicted, but an imaginary one, where it not be the landscape itself that is important, but the never-ending, practically eternal beauty of the world, which mankind has absolutely nothing to do with. In short, very few visitors of this exhibition could remain indifferent to this painting, which they perceived as some kind of witchcraft.
Редкий зритель мог остаться равнодушным перед этой картиной, которая казалась колдовством.
Actually, contemporaries of the artist accused him of witchcraft. Well, almost witchcraft. They were convinced that Kuindzhi was some kind of a heretic, almost wishing him to face the trial of the Holy Inquisition. And the above-mentioned painting, Moonlit Night on Dnipro, was so controversial at the time that its echoes were still heard long after that time. By the way, the Sumy Regional Art Museum painting is also involved in that, but we're going to talk about Moonlit Night on Dnipro, just Moonlit Night, and of course the all-Russian art scandal, and not just these topics in that order. We will start by noting that Arkhip Kuindzhi, who is usually referred to as a famous Russian artist and teacher, was born in the village of Karasivka near Mariupol, which at the time, just like a large territory of Ukraine, was part of the Russian Empire. And it was Ukrainian landscapes that brought him both his first recognition and widespread fame. He came from a family of a poor Greek shoemaker. Since childhood, he was an orphan and lived in poverty. All his life, he was driven by an irrepressible desire to paint, which is exactly what helped him and saved him from living in poverty. He was very poor when he started. He went to Crimea on foot to study under the famous artist Ayvazovsky. Once again, there are different theories on whether Ivan Ayvazovsky gave him lessons or asked him to leave. But I believe that Ayvazovsky wasn't an evil person, right? Kuindzhi's talent was evident right from his early childhood. But I think that Ayvazovsky still advised him to go to the Petersburg Academy and studied the art of painting there.
Я так гадаю, що все одно Айвазовський йому посовітував звернутися до Петербурзької академії, туди поступити і навчатися мистецтву живопису.
After all, he was a person who made a career for himself. and an individual who knew what he wanted to do in his life. Yet he received all that advice, but at the same time, he was different from others. And he befriended the famous Repin, who was also an innovator in his time, so to speak. So Kuindzhi made himself, he made his art his nature, and had a very strong character. He showed how people can work and what positive results their works bring. And his character was strong indeed. At the age of 13, he didn't give up after he walked from Mariupol to Feodosia and did not get the desired training from Ivazovsky. He spent 10 years working as a retoucher for various photographers and then moved from Mariupol to Odessa and then to Taganrog. He didn't stop painting for a minute, devoting all his free time to this art from 4 to 10 a.m. So just imagine when this young fellow found time to relax and get a good night's sleep. In 1865, he tried to enter the St. Petersburg Academy of Arts twice, both times unsuccessfully. Only 3 years later, Ivan Ivazovsky became useful to Arkhip Kuindzhi. It was under the influence of the famous marine painter that he made the painting Tatar in Crimea, which he presented at an academic exhibition, for which he received the title of a free artist. Only in 1870 he received the title of non-class artist and became a free listener at the Imperial Academy of Arts, for which he had previously passed examinations in major and special disciplines. It was his third attempt to achieve what he desired. Through his hard work, he was accepted to the highly respected Association of Wanderers. In the Kastir of the Chosen, an artistic behemoth that became well-renowned throughout the entire Russian Empire on November the 21st, 1863. In response to conservative approaches of the Academy of Arts, 14 of its most prominent artists left the Academy. This event went down in history as the Revolt of the 14. In 1870, some of those artists created the Association of Travelling Art Exhibitions, or simply Wanderers. Thus, the revolt of the democratically minded artists against the conservative rules of the Academy marked the beginning of a new phenomenon in the Russian Empire. But that also played a cruel joke on the society itself and Arkhip Kuindzhi. Yes, they were revolutionaries. They created something new and distinguished themselves from the Academy. But then, when these venerable artists worked with exhibitions of their own, they very rarely accepted new members into their society. And even if they did, it was a competition, and they held serious meetings. In short, they were very scrupulous in their tightly knit circle of members. Nevertheless, Arkhip Kuindzhi managed to break through the academicism and become a member of the society. His passion for the ideas of the society played a dual role in the life and work of the Mariupol artist. The newly established society differed from the Academy in its democratic views, capitalist relations, and artistic direction. In contrast to idealistic aesthetics of academicism, the Wanderers professed realism and nationality in art. Kuindzhi also adhered to those principles. His works from the early 1870s captivated and amazed people with the realism of landscapes. In 1872, he created a painting, Autumn Thaw, for which he was awarded the title of a classic artist. In 1874, he painted The Forgotten Village, a work that was first presented at the Wandering Exhibition instead of an academic one. The following year, he painted the Chumak Tract in Mariupol, which was bought by the famous collector and philanthropist Pavel Tretyakov on the premises of the exhibition. All of the above-mentioned works were well received and were given positive assessment by many democratic publications.
Ошеломительный успех работ Kuindzhi заключается в том,
The overwhelming success of Kuindzhi's works lie in the fact that they are amazing in terms of their visuality and specific aesthetics
все то, что
in
он
an unbelievable way.
просто необыкновенно прекрасно.
Everything he painted became extraordinarily beautiful. The shock effect from Kuindzhi's paintings lie in the fact that we seem to see well-known landscapes that we encounter throughout our lives, possibly very often in such a way that he was tearing off their covers, as if he removed their ordinary looks. And they became such that the average human eye cannot see such images in everyday life. Perhaps he saw those landscapes like God, sees the soul of the human being, namely pure and beautiful in its primordial nature. This and successful exhibitions abroad led to the fact that Arkhip Kuindzhi, who tried to become a student of the Academy of Arts 3 times, left it. But very soon after that, he also left the Association of Wanderers, which contributed to his recognition and led him to leaving the coveted academy. In the next episode of this program, we will speak about what motivated Kuindzhi to leave the Association of Travelling Art Exhibitions. What frauds was the Mariupol artist accused of by his colleagues, and how the Sumy painting became part of a nationwide all-imperial scandal.